Good afternoon, AT still, and welcome to our Ask Me Anything Lunch and Learn. I also want to thank Haley for helping to coordinate the event today. I'm Crystal Freitagger. I'm the Senior Manager of Academic and Industry Relations with Aspen Dental Management. Sorry, my phone. Aspen Dental, I represent the 800 plus Aspen Dental branded private practices nationwide. For those of you who don't know that much about Aspen Dental Management is a PSO, but we're a built-in business partner and consultant, and we offer every type of support that our dentists may need. We're 100% aligned with their success. For instance, if one of the dentists has a bad month, they have a built-in Aspen Dental business partner to help them understand how it happened, why it happened, and how to avoid it in the future. If the doctor's concerned about driving patient traffic into their practice, we're their marketing coordinator. If the doctor's concerned because technology failed, we have an IT department that's going to correct that for them. If they want to upgrade something in their practice, we're going to partner with them to help them upgrade that. And when they're ready to purchase their supplies, we've already secured the lowest prices in the industry on those supplies. Our dentists own the practices under the Aspen Dental brand, and we provide the non-clinical business support for the dentists when they need it and however they need it. And with that, we're fortunate enough to have Dr. Alex. He's our practice owner. He has 6 practices around the St. Louis metro area over into Illinois. We have him on today to be able to answer those questions that are important to you. A couple of housekeeping tips before we get started with that. First of all, I do have the list of questions that were pre-submitted by everyone using that Google registration form. So I'll read through that list of questions today, but I also want you to know that we have a Q&A function on your Zoom screen. So you can also utilize the Q&A function if you have additional questions that you want to pose to Dr. Alex today. After the call, if you have continued questions, you have my email address from the Google registration form, so you can reach out to me that way and we'll get back with you. But I'll also put, before the end, I'll put in the chat, I'll put my contact information in the chat so you can reach out to me a couple different ways. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And Doc, let's give them a little bit of background on you first, so they have a little bit of information on you. So Dr. Alex, I'll let you open with some background information on you.
Cool. I have been practicing dentistry for 16 years. I graduated from Marquette Dental School in 2004. I did my undergrad in St. Louis. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. When it came time to, after graduation, I did GPR in a hospital in Cleveland. And then I kind of started my working career. I worked at Heartland Dental for 12 years. That was awesome. It grew from, the company grew from like 37 offices to 700 offices. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. And then I kind of decided, I think this is something, I kind of want to do something a little bit different. I was talking to a dentist in St. Louis. We really had a good working relationship. Kind of had this whole plan to buy an office, and then the office started doing well. When I came in there, it was doing better than he expected it to. It was one of those classic stories where things didn't work out the way that we hoped to. At that point, there's a lot of cross contamination, cross pollination between Heartland and Aspen. Somebody who I knew from Heartland approached me like, "Hey, we have an opportunity in St. Louis with Aspen." And I think I talked to, the recruiting team for like 6-7 months and kind of figured out, okay, let's do this. Let's give it a try. At that point, Aspen had like 3-4 offices in the metro St. Louis area. Over the last 4 years, we've probably have about 22 offices in the metro St. Louis area. And it's been an incredible ride. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So 6 offices later and still going. Excellent.
Yeah, 6 offices later, still going, still crazy worlds, new challenges every day.
Excellent. Doc, let's go ahead and get started with the first question so I can get these out to you. And let's just get started with, and you're probably the best one to be able to answer for this. How does Aspen differ from other corporate dental offices?
I think there's a lot. I think the major differences are, let's kind of talk about, I think when you're talking about corporate dentistry, you're probably talking about Heartland Pacific or Aspen Dental. I think that, one of the things I really enjoy about Aspen is the culture. And so kind of here's how they differ in my opinion, and here's kind of key differences. Number one, everybody's been, everyone's doing things online, but, starting last year, we spent $30-40 million in Chicago to have a learning center, while other DSOs are starting to push that online. So, the commitment to the culture, the commitment to have those face-to-face meetings instead of online, the commitment to have learning happen in person is a very real thing at Aspen. If you work for Heartland Dental or if you work for Pacific, you will get a 40-50 page contract. It will have a lot of items in there that you will need a lawyer to review with you. You will have stuff like restricted covenants and things like that. With Aspen, you got about a page and a half. It's an agreement. You can work down the street the next day. We're fine with it. We're not focused, we're focusing on creating a win-win relationship. So like the real belief is that, if I work at Aspen and Aspen's happy and I'm happy, we truly believe that that's a long-term relationship we can live with. If someone's unhappy, ultimately, like we want them to be happy. And if it's not with us, like we don't want to keep people that aren't going to be with us. I think the third thing is, and this is going to be really important, is how we pay people. One of the major differences in how we pay people is we have a daily guaranteed, and you profit and you get paid every month on how the office does. It resets every month. So no matter what, like most new graduates will get something like $600 a day. So you're looking at, if you take that over the year, $150,000 guaranteed. But you'll profit on how the office does every month, and it resets. And somewhere like Heartland, you can actually, it doesn't reset, meaning that before you bonus, you have to pay back what Heartland or Pacific gave you. So, the contracts are very different in terms of, we never have a doctor go into a hole or owe us money. So I think those are the three biggest different points. Our culture, we really believe in meeting in person. We're investing in CE. I think that how we pay people and just, we really want to create a win-win. Like our contracts with dentists aren't really prohibitive. They're meant to foster a relationship that does create that win-win.
Excellent, Doc. Great points. I've never heard it explained that way, but that certainly resonates. Doc, I have a question that came in on the chat that I want to get out to you really quick, and that is, I have one of the students that would like to know, how many patients do you see per day?
It varies. So I have 6 offices. I go into each office every day. So today I had in my schedule 2 patients. One of them is an extraction and implant case, and one of them was a person who needed 6 root canals and like 8 or 10 crowns. I get to pick my own schedule, right? So I guess the biggest thing that I'll tell you is, where I think that question is going is how many patients do I have to see a day? You'll see whatever you're comfortable with, right? So when you come out of school, I think you're a safe beginner. It would be, there's a lot of Alexes in Aspen. So my job is to give you my knowledge that I have over 16 years in less than 16 years. So I want to teach you everything I know, and I want to do it in 2 or 3 years to get you to the level of where you're very proficient clinically, where, you can place implants, you can do things like that, which is really the trend of where general dentistry is going. So there's no set number of patients I see. I have my clinical preferences. So, for an anterior root canal, I might want an hour with a crown. For a molar, I might want an hour and a half. For, if I do an implant case, I might want 3 hours. So my team follows my preferences. And so each day is kind of different, but I also tell them hey, I don't want a day where all I'm doing is fillings, because those are really bad days. And it's very hard work to do that, and it's tough on patients. So I try to get my days with a wide variety of cases and with the time frame that I want.
Excellent. And Doc, I think you kind of answered what the next question is, and that is your associates. How many patients do your associates see? So I don't know if you want to elaborate, but I know you said that
Sure.
you follow your preference, what each provider's preferences are.
Yeah, so, we have, I've been fortunate enough, we have 3 people who graduated last year that are starting. And, the conversations with them is, I really don't care where you are. I'm more worried about attitudes, and I'm more worried about where you want to get to. So, with each of them, we kind of sat down, we have an individualized plan, like, this is where you want. Let's say you want your first, at first you want 3 hours for a crown. Totally fine. Perfect. Let me sit down with you. Let me prep with you. Let me assist you. Let me give you some tips on what you can do to be more comfortable with the procedure, to make that procedure more efficient, right? So that's kind of my job in the whole thing. But yeah, we basically let people see they'll dictate how much time they want for patients, which really dictates how many patients they see a day.
Absolutely. Doc, this is a follow-up to what you were talking about with the 3 differences between Aspen and other DSOs. And you talked about CE. So I have a question that wants to know what sort of CE is available through Aspen.
So that's kind of a twofold question. So Aspen has their own CE program as will any other DSO. So you essentially have a doctor orientation program. They're going to teach you best practices. They're going to break down some communication stuff with you, how to talk to patients. They're going to kind of touch in some leadership stuff. You'll have that kind of everywhere, right? One of the major differences that I guess I didn't touch on was the real big difference with Aspen and other DSOs. So if you work for me, or if you work in one of my offices, you kind of have 2 major advocates. One, you have Aspen Dental, which is going to do, I think, better, but the same things that Pacific and Heartland does. Then you'll have an owner doctor who is there really on a day-to-day basis to answer questions, to provide mentorship. So CEs that Aspen has they'll have, like every other DSO, they'll have the gamut of CEs, from extractions to root canals to how do you do aesthetic cases. We have our own ortho CEs. So we have, if you want to get really, really good in Invisalign, if that's something you're interested in, we can take you from 0 to 60 relatively quickly. Personally, I have a passion for implants. So most doctors who work for me, unless they object, go to a hands-on implant course in the first 12 months of being there. There's a leadership class out of North Carolina that I'm just a big fan of. So I try to send people there for a week within the first year of them being there, and then kind of follow-ups on that. So I think that would be my answer to that CE question.
Yeah, that's excellent. There's a lot that's going on. You have a lot in your PC that's going on. Doc, the next question that I have is, what are common mistakes that dental students make coming off of graduation? So you said you're working with 3 new grads, but Doc, what insight do you have on that for the students?
I think that in general, kind of school kind of teaches us, the basics, and then sometimes you'll have a lot of people who not necessarily who will question, like, what are limitations, or like, the schools do a good job of making dentists scared, right? So I think the biggest thing that I would tell people is, especially your first year, your first 3 years, get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. The only way that you're going to grow is if you challenge yourself from a clinical standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. So there's going to be situations where you get in where you know the answer, but you've probably never done it before. And that can be a little bit worrying. It can be a little bit, it can kind of give you some butterflies in your stomach, right? So I think, as a dentist for the first year especially, you got to get comfortable with that idea. I remember my first implant case that I did. It was probably 10 years ago. I think I had my mentor in the room. I had a rep in the room. I had another dentist in the room. Like, I remember being so sweaty and so worried before the patient even came, and it turned out to be fine. But like, I think dental schools do a great job of, saying like, this is what you can't do. I think, we try to be a yes company, and I think, there's a lot of things we can do. And like, you have to get comfortable with that idea.
Absolutely. Excellent. Doc, this is interesting because I know you did a GPR, but they want to know, so did your associates attend a GPR? Is it important to you that who you hire has attended a GPR?
So my associates have and have not attended GPR. So I have 12 dentists that I work with. So, the most important thing to me is somebody comes in with an attitude of, hey, I'm here to be a great team player. I'm here to help patients. I'm here to be a great boss for teams. I'm here to, really contribute, right? So I think like I come in and I learn every day from people I work with, whether it's my front desk person, whether it's whether it's a dentist who's been with me for a month. That viewpoint is really, really important to me, and I learn from that. So I think the most important thing for me when I talk to interview people is this person, are they open to other people's ideas, or do they know everything and they're not open to other people's ideas?
Absolutely. Another one, Doc, that follows the same thread is what advice would you give me on attending a GPR or AEGD or not?
So, if I had to do it over again, I think I was scared coming out of dental school. I think I had professors that said any dentist worth their salt, goes to GPR or does an AEGD. And I was like, well, this guy must know what he's talking about. So, and I think I followed that advice. If I had to do it over again, I think and I got really lucky. My hospital program was amazing. I still talk to the director. He actually works at Heartland Dental Care now. He's a great dude, but I think the most important thing is find somebody who's going to be a mentor to you, right? So, the term mentorship is often kind of abused and misused. And you need to find a coach, whether it's somebody who's going to help you through procedures, who's going to help you how to deal with staff, who's going to help you with the day-to-day life of being a general dentist, right? So if you can do that in a job, that's awesome. If you can do that in a GPR, that's awesome. But if you can find somebody who really is there to help you grow as a dentist and as a leader, that's the most important piece of advice I could give you.
Makes sense. Doc, I have another follow-up on the associates. So they want to know, how many associates do you hire right after finishing dental school versus a dentist with 1 or more years experience?
So that's not a huge deal to me. So dentists right out of dental school, I have 3 dentists this year who came to us right out of dental school. The reason they got hired is they're absolutely wonderful and fun people. When we interview people, I try not to talk about dentistry. I try to talk about, are they approachable? Are they relatable? Can I have a beer with them? Can I hang out with them? How are they going to fit in with my team? How are they going to fit in with other dentists? So I think I personally hire more towards attitude than where they are in their career, because I know this. I know that with Aspen Dental that I can take anybody who graduated dental school, and if they have the right attitude, they can be a really, really great general practicing dentist within 24 to 36 months. By that, I mean they can do most extractions, they can do most root canals, they can place implants, they can lead teams, they can talk to patients. So, sometimes it's easier to hire somebody out of school than talking to someone who's done it for 5 years, who has bad habits ingrained in them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes a lot of sense, Doc, for that. So keeping on that same thing of hiring, how long before graduation, and I guess this would be when you're in your GPR, did you start talking with, and it wouldn't have been Aspen because you were somewhere else first, but how long did it take before you started looking at what your post-grad opportunities were going to be?
Cool, so totally different world. So I went to Marquette Dental School. I graduated with less than $100,000 in debt 16 years ago. I got a partial scholarship, but totally different world. When we refinanced things, I think it was like at 2%. So like, I know everyone's probably cursing me right now and saying how lucky I was. I think that the realities of the situations, it's 2020, the world's a little bit different, right? We have never from a recruiting team been more flooded with applicants than we are now. I would highly encourage you to start looking today. I think that the more that um, talk to everybody, right? Like, I mean, like if somebody interviewed at Aspen, I would say interview with all the DSOs, see what's different about us. I want somebody who wants to be with me, not somebody who wants a job, but start looking right now, because there is nothing wrong with starting your Christmas break knowing that your job is locked up. And like this year, you got to understand, some people don't start looking until March. So people who wanted to wait till March this year are screwed. Like a lot of my new associates are like, my friends still don't have jobs because the world shut down. So I would say start looking now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice considering too. Let's see. And I think you answered this one, so I feel pretty good about that, but I'm just going to tell you what it was. They wanted to know if you talked to other DSOs before working with Aspen. And I think you shared already that you also worked at Heartland, right, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, one of my jobs with Heartland was I helped train new dentists, all right? So I was in charge of a particular region of about 67 offices at Heartland Dental Care, and I helped train new dentists. So I'm very, very familiar with what they do.
Excellent. And Doc, how about what advantages do you see that corporate dentist offers for new grads?
Um, our integrity. So I think there's a lot of really great private practices. I think with any kind of DSO, you're going to get more access to CE. You're going to get more access to different viewpoints. I think the more viewpoints you get, the better. I think that, I mean, listen, I think there's some wonderful private practice out there, but as Aspen Dental, like, we have to do what we say, because the word would get out really quickly if we don't. So like if I promise someone, listen, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we don't do it, and they leave and they go back to ADT still, and they tell, hey, don't work for Aspen, because this is what happened to my experience. So we have to be so much more protective of people's experience, because we have a national reputation, right? So if you're a local private practice and you work in St. Louis and you interview somebody from Ohio State University, they know nothing about you, you know nothing about them, and it's pretty easy, right? Like we have that reputation to protect, so we have to go above and beyond. We have to do what we say we're going to do, and really in life you're going to find out some people don't do what they say they're going to do.
Unfortunate. Doc, I have some questions around starting out as an associate or a lead, and so let's go through some of those. So the first one is, if I start as an associate, how quickly would I be able to become a lead and or an owner?
As quickly as your ability allows, right? So I think and I'm imagining everyone does it the same way. When we start off with an associate, we always kind of, I always kind of like to start people, especially out of school, as an associate. I have a person who's been with me since June, and in October he's going to take over the MCD position, just because he's ready. You know, his ability is there. He's a great leader. He's super charismatic, and he's really open to any kind of coaching. I think the biggest thing is, I would kind of rephrase the question of not how quickly can I get there, like how quickly can you teach me how to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, one of the worst things we can do to somebody is put them in a position where they can't succeed. So example, if you made me a Major League Baseball player, that, you know, it might be really cool for a day or two, but ultimately I couldn't succeed in that position, right? So I would ultimately fail, and I would, you know, no longer be playing pro baseball. So when we start people, we want to start them at a level where we know we can succeed, and we want to grow them. And the reason we want to grow them is it gets back to that philosophy of we want to create a win-win for people. So, you know, I'm a firm believer, and I think Aspen is the top 3 reasons why people leave companies. They don't feel safe, right? So think about what that means. Like, a lot of dental offices went out of business during COVID, because simply they didn't have the financial backing to keep going. So like there was concerns about the safety of that job. They don't feel appreciated, right? That's its own thing. But the third reason is there's no growth potential, right? So we know as a company, if I limit someone's growth, they're out, right? And all that time and effort that I invested in them is gone. So it's in my best interest to always have growth potential, whether it's with an associate, have a really clear plan. How do you become a lead dentist, an MCD? With a lead dentist, how do you become a partner? With a partner, like, how do you own your own? It's always in my best interest to grow people.
Okay, excellent, Doc. Great answer with that. So this is interesting because this really follows up to what you just kind of said. However, they want to know, like, what do you see as pros and cons of being an associate for a long period of time?
Different people want different things in life. An associate position. So I have an associate in O'Fallon, and she's very clear that she wants to start a family, and that dentistry is on her second thing in life, right? So there's people, whether it's they want to work 3 days a week because they want to devote time to family, to hobbies, to other things, right? So one of the great things about being an associate is there's less pressure on you. You're not running the business. You don't speak for the numbers. You're kind of learning how to become a good dentist, or you're just a good dentist who doesn't want a lot of the responsibility. So everybody has different things that they're passionate about, and it's our job, it's my job as an owner to kind of work around that, right?
Mhm.
So I think that, being an associate there's less pressure to run the business. It allows you freedom to explore other interests that you find interesting, or what your passion is. I have a friend, I know somebody at Aspen who's an associate because they're writing a book. So like, their passion is writing. Dentistry is one of their passions, but they're writing a nonfiction book, and that's kind of where, they work 4 days a week, and he works about 32 hours, and the rest of the time he devotes to that. So I think it's just the work-life balance and what's important to you and what your passions are.
Absolutely. Okay. So Doc, I'm going to go into, I have several questions that have come across on ownership.
Okay.
Um, and the first one is I'm interested in ownership. How would I start the process?
I think in any organization you get into, so become part of that organization that you want to own it, right? So like, if you want to be an owner in Aspen Dental, join Aspen Dental, right? Step one. Step two, be the best associate you can be. Like, when you're talking about ownership, there's a lot more to it rather than just being a dentist. It's, are you a good team player? Are you easy to work with? Like, it's not all about you, right? So I think, the higher you get up in leadership positions, the less it becomes about you, the more it becomes about your team. So really, like, great leaders don't, they inspire people. So I think, start doing that kind of stuff. I think you want to make yourself, in my eyes, the quickest way to do it is make yourself irreplaceable, right? So like, when I started Aspen Dental, I owned within 4 months, but totally different situation. I worked as a dentist for 12 years, right? But I really, like, my thought process, and nothing was guaranteed to me when I started, but I just wanted to be the best dentist in St. Louis. Aspen Dental had. I wanted to be the person that people turned to when they had a question, when they were interviewing somebody, when they were doing something like that. And I wanted to make myself irreplaceable. I wanted people to say, God, we're so much better off with Alex than without Alex. What can we do to keep him?
Excellent, Doc. So a follow-up on here is, and this is kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on buying into a well-established practice versus starting from scratch? Have you done both?
I've done both. Um, I, I, my, I think that both have its benefits, right? I think that if I had my choice, I would buy an office and start it from scratch, just because it's easier to teach good habits than to change bad habits. So I opened up 2 offices late last year. If you're familiar with St. Louis, which people on the call will be, one is in O'Fallon and one's in Brentwood. And both those offices are performing at a really, really high level. I think this month, they're some of the top performing offices in Aspen Dental. So one of the real benefits to that was Aspen picks incredible locations, and they have incredible systems in place to help you open it. They just need leadership on the ground to help do that. So I think as long as you're a good enough leader, both are viable, but my personal preference is I'd rather open than buy.
Excellent, Doc. And from this student, it is, I'm looking to move to a state that Aspen isn't in. How can I open an Aspen dental office there?
So Aspen isn't in a state. So it's not one of those things that you can just say, hey, I'm trying to think of states we're not in. So like,
Nevada.
sure. So let's say I want to move to Nevada. First of all, we'll get there, I promise you. I know we're just opening up in Colorado, which I would imagine is going to be extremely popular. I know we opened up in California. We're going to get there. If you're really, truly passionate about working with Aspen Dental, one of the limitations is going to be you're going to have to go somewhere where we are, right? I know when we opened up in North Carolina, it was abundantly clear to everybody that, hey, we're opening up in North Carolina. We know this is going to be a popular market. Who would be interested in owning it, right? And so that became abundantly clear to people. I would say, it's not one of those things like, hey, I'm moving to this location, I'd like to open up. Aspen Dental does a lot of the research of where they're going to open and when they're going to open, stuff like that. But if you're truly passionate about a location, I'm positive that if I wanted to open up a location somewhere in St. Louis, I would be very well heard. And I could probably, if I wanted to do it, I could get it to happen. But I mean, it's, I'm positive if we had a great associate and a great MCD and they wanted to move somewhere, that we would pretty much make sure that it happened for them.
Excellent, Doc. And Doc, this next question, I know you said your student loans weren't quite like what some others are right now. However, they want to know, do you feel that it's important to focus on paying off student loans or investing in a practice during the first couple of years out of school?
I think so. For all my associates, St. Louis, I have a financial guy that I've worked with for the last 16 years of my life. I love him. He has helped make my life incredibly rewarding from a monetary standpoint. So we talked about coaching. I can be a good dental coach. I can be a good leadership coach. I am not a financial coach, but I can point you to one. So I would highly encourage you to interview 3, 4, 5 wealth management people. They will love talking to you. You are going to be a young person who's graduating, who has potential to make a lot of money. They are going to want you as clients. Go to the one who you are most comfortable with. So like for me, that process, when I started, I interviewed 3, 4 people and we just kind of talked about like, how does life look like when you're 40? How does life look like when you're 50, right? And we really sold, like, I went with someone who listened to my vision of what I want life to be, right? So I think, I'll give you an example. My wife's parents, her dad was a college professor. So he taught at like University of Rochester, Notre Dame, Duke. He taught at all these places and they always moved. So something that was really important to her was owning the house outright because they move so much in life. I'm like, Allison, that's a horrible idea. Like interest rates are 3%. Like it makes absolutely no economic sense just to buy the house. Like we should invest it. We paid off the house because that was emotionally important to her, right? So like you have to find out what's emotionally important to you. The one thing that I will tell you is, you're graduating in a field that can be incredibly lucrative. And as long as you have a plan and you execute it monthly and you have discipline, financially, you're not going to have a lot of problems. No matter what anybody tells you about interest rates and debt and loans, you will be more than fine.
Excellent, Doc. Thank you so much for that. The next thing I have is they want to know, what's the cost of an Aspen dental practice?
What's the cost of an Aspen Dental office? So right now, if you were to buy a new Aspen Dental office, fully furnished with, 7 chairs and a cone beam machine and digital scanners, it's $350,000.
Okay. And Doc, as a follow-up for that too, because they have this, about how long would it take to pay off your purchase of an Aspen dental practice?
Depends how fast you spend money. So, having total transparency, the office that I bought in Brentwood, if I took all the money that I get out of the office, I could pay it off in less than a year. So that return on investment is amazing. So Aspen dental offices are very cheap for what you get compared to the market value because, it goes back to the belief system. it's not the scanners, it's not the chairs, it's not the computers, it's not the iPads where people fill stuff out on. This important, it's the people. So like Aspen's philosophy is they want to get really, really good people in there, and the return on investment, like it creates that win-win, right? So like when I do well, Aspen does well. It's this lovely symbiotic relationship that just happens.
Excellent. Hey, Doc, I'm going to go back over to compensation questions. You did a really nice job and shared some compensation with when you were talking first about the top three differences, right? But I
Right.
do have a couple more questions on does Aspen Dental help with moving costs? And then also, how do we take advantage of tuition reimbursement?
Yes and yes. So just ask for it, right? So like, again, I don't like everyone's going to have a different situation, right? So what's important to you, you have to kind of ask, right? So when you're interviewing, you're also interviewing, like the interviews for both sides, right? So to me, like the people who are the best interviews are the people who ask me those questions, right? It's someone who's really well thought out. Whatever is important to you, ask. And, if it's doable, it's doable. If it's not, it'll never be like, oh, no, and we won't talk about it. Like if someone wants moving costs, like what's a reasonable amount? We had somebody who moved, I had a dentist who moved from Boston to St. Louis, and we came up with, I think 8,000 or 10,000 was more than a reasonable moving cost, right? Um, you know, you just have to kind of ask for that. Yes, Aspen will help with moving costs. Aspen will help with tuition reimbursements in areas that are, that are hard to fill. Obviously, that stuff is easier. So Nashville, everybody in the world wants to move to Nashville. I think Columbus, Ohio is becoming one of those places where everybody in the world wants to move. Those places, Chicago, tend not to have as much tuition reimbursement or, for example, as maybe someplace in North Dakota, right? So what's important to you? You really have to come up with a list of, is mentorship important? What are your top 10? Is it tuition reimbursement? Is that number one? Is mentorship number one? Is potential ownership number one? Right? So if you come up with your top 10 and you talk to a recruiter, they will find something, they'll probably focus a lot more on 1, 2, and 3 as compared to 8, 9, 10. But that would be my advice on that.
Excellent, Doc. I think that's great advice. And you're right, they're negotiating with the practice owners. So it certainly is something that they can negotiate. And also correct that we have a list of those offices that are open for tuition reimbursement. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said those are those difficult to fill locations. So Doc, I'm going to move to, I think we covered all of the questions around compensation for the most part, because I think you covered a lot of that early on. But let's move over to some of the clinical questions, because there's a lot of clinical questions on here too. And that is, so they want to know, and we know you're in the St. Louis area, but where are you working? But more importantly, the second part of that question, Doc, is do you have the autonomy, and what does that look like?
I have 100% autonomy, and it looks like whatever I want it to look like. So, in terms of, like in my offices, we have certain beliefs, right? Like we really try to cater our schedule around patients, right? So, in my offices, the belief system is, we're here to help patients. We're here to make their lives easier. So, some people, want to do everything in one big appointment. Some people want to do things in smaller appointments. We really try to cater towards that. So I've never had anybody, and even at any DSO, I've never had anybody at Heartland, especially, at Aspen, tell me like, this is what your schedule is going to look like. I mean, that just simply doesn't happen, right? So there's other dentists that I talk to. I get clinical advice from my mentors. So I have mentors in Aspen Dental. I'll call somebody, I'll ask them like, hey man, this is a panel, this is a 3D imaging case. Here's what I'm thinking of doing with these implants. Like, what are your thoughts on it? And they might give me feedback like, oh, you're right, or no, you're crazy. Like, consider this instead, right? So I think that like when you start off as an associate in the right relationships, you're gonna have a mentor who's gonna, and they're gonna talk to you about, what patients we serve, right? What what does that look like? What are some fundamental beliefs? And we hope that matches up, with people that we're working with. So fundamental beliefs at Aspen Dental is we serve an underserved population. But what I mean by that is, 50% of the adults in the US don't see a dentist every year. And if you extrapolate that further, over 3 to 5%, there's like 33% of adults who don't see a dentist. Why don't they see a dentist? Because dentists work from 9 to 3, because dentists are, weird about taking insurances, because dentists, calling in, well, I call at 5 o'clock after I get done with work, but, the office is closed. So, we see those people. So we have a call center that takes calls basically like 24/7. I think they're off a little bit on Sundays. We're open some evenings a week. The belief system is, we know that people need evenings. So all my dentists work one evenings a week. I work 2 evenings a week. So we have like some fundamental beliefs. That's kind of what dictates. It's not clinical autonomy, but you have all the clinical autonomy you want, but you have to be bought into our belief system. So we try to make things simple for patients, right? We have our own labs in-house for dentures. The reason being is we want to get them done in 7 days tops, not 6 weeks. We scan every crown because things go in quicker that way. I think you live in a society where people want things done. They want things done correctly. They want things done quickly, and they want them done efficiently. So I personally want general dentists that are able to do most procedures, who don't see it as, they don't see it as patients who are patients aren't here to see me. I'm here to see the patient. So think about what that difference is. That means that I'm not running late for you because I'm on your schedule, right? I really have my office's focus when they confirm new patients. They don't say like, oh, you have an appointment with us. We have an appointment with you, right? You change that wording, you change that viewpoint. So you'll have all the autonomy you want, but you have to be bought into the fundamental belief system. And the fundamental belief system is that patients come first, that we're really here to serve people. And we do it. We have a lot of fun doing it. It's financially rewarding to do it, but it's not all about you.
Mm-hmm. Doc, you really did a fabulous job of answering part of this question too, but I'll give you the rest of it because there's another one that was a follow-up, and they wanted to know typically what type of patients Aspen sees in their practice, which I think you did an amazing job with, but they also wanted to know what's your procedure mix and do you accept Medicaid?
Aspen Dental, as far as I know, does not take any kind of state aid. Okay, what's my procedure mix? I see everything, right? So some of my offices, I learned that the more I do, the more procedures I can do, the more procedures I tend to do. So what I mean by that, before I placed implants, I didn't see any implant schedule on my schedule. So I try to make myself pretty proficient in most procedures, right? So I can do most implants, I can do most root canals, I can take out most third molars, I can do most ortho cases. So that's what I see because that's the skill set that I was lucky enough to have mentors who helped develop that in me, okay? I offer my patients skill sets and I can talk about it in a benefit to them that allows me to do more. And that's something that comes with time too, right? You can be the most talented dentist in the world, but if you can't talk to patients if I can't talk to patients about placing implants with dentures, I'm going to do a lot of dentures, but no implant retained dentures, right? So I have a standard of care in my offices we try to offer people implants with most lower dentures, right? There's 10% of the population that doesn't have the bone for them or so, but the other people, we offer it to them. And what that does is, let's say they don't do it now and their lower denture doesn't work because most lower dentures don't work that well. They'll come back in a year or two, say, hey, I want those implants now, right? So my procedure mix is, Aspen doesn't tell you, no owner tells you, nobody tells you what you can do, right? Your procedure mix is a reflection of your ability to do the procedure and your ability to convince patients to let you do that procedure, because we can't tie up anybody in the chair and let you do whatever you want.
Excellent. Great answer, Doc. Doc, the next one is from someone that says, I've heard that there is pressure on Aspen dentists to be extra productive. I also think I've heard that the contracts generally have, well, I think you've answered this, but I think you answered a portion of this. I've generally heard that contracts have base pay and extra income based on production, which you explained. Is there any pressure on Aspen dental dentists to be extra productive other than increasing personal income?
So let me clarify something. You have a base pay, then you have a production that's based on how the office did, not how you did. That is a very important distinction, okay? That means that if you're working with me and I come into your office and I place implants, you benefit from that, which is totally different than every other DSO where you get paid on what you do, not what your partner does, not what the managing dentist does. The reason we do that is it creates less competition. So if you were only paid on what you do, it'd be very natural for the MCD to do all the crowns and for the associate to do all the fillings. And that's the beauty of that system. That's a very, very important difference. I have never once talked to a dentist about production, right? So you kind of really have to understand when someone says there's pressure on us to produce, right? If somebody at Aspen were giving people pressure to produce, even if it was in my offices, it would show the person who's applying the pressure has a very little understanding of the business of dentistry. Production is a lag metric, meaning like it happens because things happen before it, right? So you only get production when your team is happy, the dentist is happy, the patients are happy, the team is working well to be a dentist, so, or to be a team, right? So if we see something like, we look at trends, right? So if we see like, hey, this office, for the last 3 months has really underproduced, the question wouldn't be, to the dentist, like, what the hell is going on? Why are you producing less? The question would be like, what's going on in the culture that is keeping that? So we never talk to dentists about productions. We talk to dentists about behaviors, cultures, things like that influence that kind of stuff. Like, I don't think anybody, when you talk about production, you can't just say, oh, go produce more. It's, as a mentor, am I giving you, do you have the skill set? Do you feel comfortable? Are you feeling supported? Like, is the staff doing a good enough job? Are we getting you enough new patients? Are we doing those things to allow you to be successful? It's never like, hey, I want you to produce more because I want to buy something. That's never the talk.
Excellent, Doc. Great. Then you talked about digital. So they want to know, are all Aspens fully digital, from digital impressions, CEREC, CBCT? So anyway, they gave the rundown. So maybe talk about what is in there.
So most Aspens, I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule. Most Aspens, all new Aspens now come with CBCTs. We're putting CBCTs in all the existing offices. That initiative got delayed a little bit because of 2020. Most Aspen dentals by now have digital impressions. We don't do CEREC machines in the office. We just don't do it. There's a lot of clinical reasons, but we don't do CEREC machines in the offices.
Excellent, Doc. So the next one I have, and we're right about that 10 minutes left. So for anyone else that wants to get additional questions, and just so I can give you guys that timeline. But Doc, the next question I have is, what types of variations do you see in Aspen clinics in regards to the number of dentists employed at a particular location? And then also they want to know, do you have in-house specialists?
Yeah, so we have in-house specialists. Most Aspen dentals are supported by oral surgeons. Some Aspen dentals are supported by endodontists. We don't, we're working on the ortho model right now. We don't have any pediatrics that come to our offices. So, that's kind of the aspect of that variation of employment. I think, there's some Aspen offices that have one dentist. There's some that have 3 or 4 dentists working there. I think that, as a whole, we know as a company that we're better off having at least 2 dentists in an office. It just makes life easier. It makes accessibility for patients easier. It makes covering vacations a lot easier. So I would say that, for specialists, yes, on oral surgeons is a general answer. Maybe on ortho or endodontist, probably no on ortho and pedo. And we're really working as a company to get that 2-doctor model in every office.
Okay. And Doc, I have a follow-up on that wants to know, are you able to refer out if you want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Easy enough. And Doc, you also talked about vacation pay. And I have on here is, does Aspen Dental cover benefits, and is it easy to get vacation days?
Yeah, we cover benefits. We have 401k, we have health insurance, we cover malpractice for associates. Vacation's great. I mean, the more you communicate, the longer in advance you can give someone, the easier it is. So we realize emergencies happen. I have 12 dentists. We're going to be open I think Christmas, December 25th is a Friday. We're going to be open that next Monday, right? If everybody requested off that Monday, we would probably have to say no to some people. So we basically ask people, as soon as you know of vacation, right, please put it in, please let us know. We find out that works really well because some people's big holiday is Thanksgiving, some people's big holiday is Christmas, some people love them spring break, some people really, do a family trip around the 4th of July. So I think most people are adults enough to realize, like, you're probably not going to be off around every Easter, spring break, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Some of those days you may work more than a typical academic schedule permits, but I think if you communicate what your preferences are, we're going to do everything we can to meet those. It just kind of goes back to creating that win-win model.
Excellent. Doc, I'm going to jump back into a clinical question really quick that I have because I want to make sure this gets answered for you. You talked about you talked about your procedure mix. However, I've heard that the patient base is predominantly dentures. Why is that?
It's not.
Okay.
So in my business, I own 6 offices, and if you go down by revenue, including hygiene, I would say that my denture patients make up maybe 25% of receipts. So including oral surgery and dentures, right? So it's simply not. I think that might have been a fair statement 10 years ago. It's just not the case anymore. We have some really awesome technologies that allow us to do, crowns really quickly. We have a huge implant initiative as a company. So we're just not a denture company. And if you feel that way, I think everybody, who's on this call is going to their last clinicals of St. Louis. You are more than welcome to come visit any of my offices. I can show you schedules. I can show you 6 months ago schedules. That's just simply not the case.
Excellent. And Doc, kind of going on to that, to follow up on their denture question, they want to know, how easy or difficult is it to fabricate a denture?
It's so much easier than school. It's so much easier at school. We have incredibly well-trained denture lab techs. The process of making a denture in the real world versus school is night and day. I hated making dentures at school. I thought it was horrible. I had to set teeth. I had to do all this kind of stuff. We have, we surround you with really, really good people that make your life easier. So the process of making dentures in the real world is super, super easy.
Excellent. And Doc, I do have one more follow-up question, if you don't mind, on it really probably on ownership, but it came really around contract, that they understand it's an at-will offer. When you moved into ownership, what does your contract look like?
I think there's more responsibility. So like I pay my own healthcare, I pay my own malpractice. Obviously there's more opportunity. my contract is basically Aspen Dental, we call it ADMI, Aspen Dental Management Incorporated, provides non-clinical services for me. So payroll, they help me order stuff, HR stuff, IT stuff. They help get like release like consent forms, right? Those get updated. That's what Aspen Dental provides. For that they get a fee. I'm responsible for everything else. So I guess that's what my ownership contract looks like.
Excellent. And Doc, what does your exit strategy look like if you want to retire?
That's a really good question. I'm 42 years old, so I really started like, what does life look like when I'm 50? And I think that like obviously, when you have offices, you have an asset, right? And it's an asset that produces money. So I think one of the Aspen Dental ownership program's been around for 20 years now. Is that right, Crystal?
A little bit over,
A
yeah.
lot. So a lot of the owners now are starting to retire. So there's a lot of clarity of that. Essentially, like if you want to leave, you can sell your stake at an agreed upon price, just as you would in like the free market, right? But there's a lot of things that I can do right now. Exiting, I can sell 80% of my offices and keep 20% on and work less. Let's say when I'm 55 or 50 years old. So my exit, we have an ownership team, and they're awesome. So they do a really good job of helping me get answers to questions. And I would imagine that when I get to that point, they would ask me what's important to me, what do I see life looking at. And we're a big network. We have over 800 offices, around 1,500 doctors. So they'll find out what's important to me, and they'll match that up with somebody in the network, right? So like someone might say like, I really want to own 6 offices in St. Louis, but I want the owner doctor to be a part of it for a couple of years as a leave. And if that's something that works out, they'll help kind of find that match. So they're kind of a matchmaker in that sense also.
Excellent. And Doc, we're going to end with one final question so I can get this in for him, but they want to know, has there ever been something you disagree with Aspen, and did you still have to do it?
Okay, so clinically, probably not. So I've never had someone come in my office and say, you need to do this clinically. I have mentors whose opinion I trust clinically, who tell me how to do stuff. I think when you ask that question, it's a really good question. It's a really good beginner question. And the reason I say that is I've never had to do anything. I don't have to do anything. But I also realize I'm part of a network with 800 plus offices. That gets a lot of information. So I have my beliefs. I have my beliefs on how a business should run. But I also know that I'm a dentist. I did not get an MBA. I have limited business training, right? So when you ask that question, like you have to understand it's a partnership. So whether you're married, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in a parent-son relationship, a parent-daughter relationship, everything is a partnership. And the best relationships work when they're win-win, and the best relationships work when there's consensus. So sometimes I go into something and Aspen could be like, listen, this is something that's happening real world. We have a lot of people calling our offices, and the busiest call days are Mondays and Tuesdays because they're coming off the weekend. So we get a lot more calls Monday morning than we do Friday morning. It's just the way the business works. So Aspen Dental came up with a solution of, you know what, because of this new patient demand, we're suggesting that don't schedule production the first 2 hours on Monday and open that time up for some new patients. And I was like, that makes no sense to me. That's dumb. I'm going to give up production. But like, I'm also smart enough to realize like, that recommendation wasn't made because they really wanted to kind of ruin my Monday morning, or they wanted to make my Monday morning crazy. That recommendation was made for the best interest of patients and for the best interest of the business. That's why that recommendation was made. So I wasn't made to do that. I just kind of learned I learned over the years that sometimes, you know, just because I don't see an idea, I trust Aspen enough, so I'm never made to do something. Sometimes I say like, hey, listen, I don't fully get that, but like all this reasoning sounds really, really good, so let's roll with it, right? So like, it doesn't, like, we're not looking for what's right and wrong or who's right and wrong. We're really looking for what the ideas are. And I think the best partnerships, the best relationships aren't dominated by anybody, right? So believe me, my offices feel very different than some Aspen Dental offices. There's definitely my personality behind some of them, but also as a partner, as being part of a team, like I try to build consensus, right? So when, you know, when my support team, which is like, you know, it's not Aspen Dental to me, it's Lance, it's Lindsay, it's Dan. When those people come to me with an idea, like it's not Aspen Dental, it's people who I love, it's people who I like to work with, it's Lance's, it's Lindsay's, it's Dan that come to me with ideas. I respect them enough. So people have this notion that like on your fax, you'll get a mandate from Aspen Dental is this is how we're running the practice. It's just not how it works. You work with people, you'll get to respect those people, you'll respect their opinions, and you'll move forward based on that.
Wow, I couldn't find a better way to end, Doc. What a great response. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, AT
Yeah.
Still. And Dr. Alex, appreciate all the feedback that you gave. You have a
Cool.
great.
And so with anybody with ADT still, I have 6 offices in the St. Louis area. If you want to know more about Aspen Dental, Crystal will give you my cell phone number. She'll give you my email information. She will give you a list of my offices. You are more than welcome to come by anytime you want. We're a very open company.
Awesome. Thank you, Doc. I'll certainly get that out to everyone. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day, Doc. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.